Hello, Chiefs. Assalamu alaikum. Whoa. I think we waited enough for. Oh, he said he's coming. That's true. So there's no point waiting for him since he's not coming. Mr. Jalil has gone. So, Mr. Lako, how now?
Alhamdulillah, well done, sir.
Our house and call.
Àwọn ọ̀gá wa rí.
Mo ní àwọn ará house.
Ẹ̀mọ́ láwọn ọ̀gá wa.
Àbí o.
Wọ́n jẹun sí wa lọ́rùn.
Àbí o. Mr. Jalil, how market now? Hello, Mr. Jalil. It's like he's having network issues from what I can see. Hello, Mr. Jalil, are you there? Hello, Mr. Abdul Jalil. Hello.
Probably it's network. Nigeria, we did one of the challenges of supporting virtual team.
Of course, you can imagine. Ben. Then, should we just proceed now? We should wait for him to figure out his network.
Good afternoon, sirs.
What happened to your network?
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, boss.
It's enough for now. It's enough for now, sir.
You don't have any risk mitigation strategy for your network?
Actually, I'm in transit, sir. I think that's the reason why. But I will soon be able to settle it.
Oh, are you driving?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Right. That one is powerful. Okay. Before you drop the attention, do you mind giving us your KLP for yesterday? Key learning point. What did you take out of yesterday's class?
Yesterday, quite a lot.
Yeah, share.
Resource management, resource planning. I also learned about estimates.
No, pick one and talk about it. Just pick one thing and talk about it.
Sir? Hello? Hello,
I said pick one thing and talk about it. Mr. Abdul Jalil, I said pick one thing and talk about it.
Okay. It has to do with teams, team training, right? It's important that we keep tab with the team so that we keep the dream alive. And so once we identify there are gaps, unnecessarily when setting up the team charter, we should be able to set up some ground rules, which should cover trainings, who needs training, when and how. Trainings will be conducted within the team with the primary objective of project deliverables, delivering the project deliverable on time as the project manager.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Jalil. So over to you, Mr. Lako. Give us your KLP for yesterday.
Okay.
Wake up, Mr. Lako, wake up.
Can you hear me?
Hello, how about you?
Okay, so mine is about it's on negotiation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Businessman.
The only
thing you go remember.
No, it's not the only thing. So we should pick one. Or I should pick everything. Oh,
oh my God, it's too much. Yeah, tell us. Yeah, pick one. Tell us about it.
Okay. So negotiating agreements. Yeah, so it's very key. Why we need to negotiate, and because some key agreements need to be, some key things need to be agreed upon in terms of project performance reporting, in terms of even the service level agreement, the scope of what is need to be agreed upon, the payment structure too, the milestone, how it will be reported to, so that we need these things to be firmed up. But more often than not, you cannot just go there and judge and just make your own view known on all those things, and we expect everybody to just give a buy-in like that. No, there will be some counter argument and what have you. So you have to be well prepared now to negotiate through, and so that at the end of the day you can now reach a landing, and that will be the working principle for all the stakeholders. So one of the reasons why it's important in terms of for example, you want to develop a product and you believe that okay, by the time you achieve like 25%, that is a major milestone. But if it is not well negotiated from the beginning, so you achieve that 25%, maybe you put in your invoice and the client is saying no, you've not until you achieve it 100%. But if you've done the negotiation right from the onset and you agreed on it, then you now know that is now binding to each and every partner. So we have different techniques of now determining what the objectives are, of what is being negotiated. So the Moscow model, the peer comparison model, the Kano model, and what have you. So that is
sorry. I missed the last sentence. You said there are different ways to negotiate what?
No, I say different techniques.
To do what?
Hello?
I'm with you. Different techniques to achieve what?
No. In terms of backlog, how to arrange, because we have to know, okay, for example, using agile methodology now, you have to develop the backlog. Then each of those sprints, you can't be picking as you prioritize the user stories. So you have to pick in which one to be in the sprint, in each of the sprint. So I now said, okay, the methodology, the techniques of actually arranging all those, developing that backlog and putting the most important things at the upfront, that we use different techniques to actually achieve this. So part of which is the Kano model, the Moscow, the peer comparison analysis, and etc. That's what I said.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kolawole, body and soul, body alone or soul alone. Assume that you're supposed to be in transit. Are you just body alone, soul alone, or none, or both?
Body alone, sir.
Okay, so we should leave you alone.
Yes, sir.
All right, no problem. Safe journey. Where are you in the country?
Have you landed?
No. I'm inside the plane now. I'm just boarding now.
Okay.
Just boarding. Other safe journey.
Yeah, yes, I wish you safe trip.
Thanks, sir. Thanks. I appreciate, sir. Yeah. Mr. Jerry, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Bring something come for us.
All right, sir.
Something choppable, not being textbook, waiting on you down. Mr. Lako go like textbook, me na food man like. All right.
Oni ragba fún textbook. Ani eko dollar wa.
All right. Okay. We're actually making good progress. We are making some good progress. We're about to finish. We're close. Think of for the fact that there was a little 45-minute delay yesterday when we resumed from the break. Should have finished lesson 1 yesterday. It's very, very important that all you have done up to this point should make sync. Not just ordinary sync, it must mega sync. Because every other thing going forward is going to be built on top of the foundation that you have right now. And a lot of things that we are explaining now, we won't explain it again. We will come up again and we will explain it again. For example, don't expect that if I cross backlog now, you won't explain backlog again. I come across retrospective. I come across domains, class. No. That is the reason why this initial period, we spent a lot of time. We spent a whole week doing introduction to the introduction of the introduction by we spent a whole week and Saturday, Sunday doing all those intro. First of all, went to the old syllabus, did process knowledge, process group. Now you know all about it. So that you can go to connect the dots. Disconnect point. You want to connect them together in your mind. So you need to have of how they are related. So that's that. So let's talk about the last lesson 1, and that is build a shared understanding about a project. Building a shared understanding about a project is as good as building the vision for the project. Don't forget, you might not be clear about the how, but as much as possible, never allow ambiguity about the what. You might not be clear about the how. Never allow ambiguity. Of course, as much as possible. Don't tolerate ambiguity about the what. The mission of the project should be clear. The goals of the project should be clear. What exactly you are trying to achieve. Because how do you manage what you don't understand? So the whole idea is once you know where you are going, that is when you'll be able to plot a journey to say, okay, what is the best way to get there? But in cases where you don't even know where you are going, then how do you even know how to get there? So having clarity around the big picture is one of the most important things you want to do for yourself and for your team on a project. When your team members have clarity of the big picture, it is easier for them to be able to put in a lot more energy. It's just like saying somebody who is running. I participate in running once in a while, and when I know that I'm running to that place, and I can afford to calibrate my energy to say, should I jog, should I sprint, or should I walk? Because I know that, okay, if where I'm going is just 50 meters away, I can afford to run like a madman, all my energy. Because I know that I can sustain it, it's just 50 meters. If I know that I want to run for 5 kilometers, then I can do slow jogging. No, I would have calibrated mentally. I know the amount of energy I want to put in. But if I don't know where I'm going, Mr. Lako, what happens? What's the strategy I will adopt if I don't know where I'm going? You not hear me?
It's better to walk briskly.
Exactly. Like I would adopt the path of least resistance. So that, well, if it is close, okay. If it is far, okay. You understand? I will adopt the path of least resistance. Well, I don't know where I'm going, but let me just be cautious. Let's keep going. Keep going. But if I understand the big picture, to allow me to also know, rejig my mindset and plan. Say, okay, this is how I want to get about it. So that is why it's important when you're managing a team that, give them an idea of what exactly they are up onto. So that takes us the concept of project vision. At the start of a project, you need a clear vision of the desired objectives. You also need to understand and appreciate how the project vision aligns with the organization's strategic goals. That line, we have not discussed it. Maybe because it is still back. Keeping the business in mind. But before we get there, we are businessmen on this call. Mr. Mjeli, why is this important? Project vision aligns with the organization's strategic goals. Why is that regarded as an important thing to talk about?
Yeah, it's important because for having the business in mind, we would say because the vision has to be clear and it has to be in line with the goals, because it's in any case it requires some kind of resources, as it requires some kind of energy. So why channel your energy to something it's not fruitful, right?
Fruitful as defined by who?
As defined by the organization strategy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's clearly stated. So you are the steward of this vision, and it's up to you as project manager to ensure the project delivers. Very important. So your vision statement talks about the product or the solution description, the intended users or consumers of the solution, key desired objectives, differentiators from competitive approaches, key features and benefits. Now, remember, we talked about chapter. Yeah, remind me, okay? Because of time, let's just move on. I'll have asked us that, okay, tell us, what do you remember about chapter? Talked about chapter. Chapter is that, in fact, the number of points that you should note here. Number one is, it is issued by the project initiator or sponsor. That's point number one. It's issued by the project initiator or by the sponsor. That's point number one you should note. It is always issued by a higher authority. The project manager cannot cannot authorize himself to work on a project. Project manager cannot authorize himself because he cannot authorize himself. In fact, when there is no charter, there is no project. So the project charter itself authorizes the existence of a project. That charter is what symbolizes that, yes, a project has started. It's the charter. It's like saying, when you write the constitution of a country, yeah, that means there's a country. Without the constitution, there's no country. Well, I don't know if that is true anyway. So that's the second point. The third point is it gives authority to the project manager. So that's it's just like let me see. What's that? Let's say, for example, you are the Cardoso. Cardoso was nominated as the CBN governor by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Until when you are confirmed by Senate, you are what? You are acting. Whatever you do is in acting capacity. It is when confirmed by Senate that you become substantive. But in this case, you can't even be acting. You cannot do acting project manager. If there is no charter that authorizes you to say you are now the project charter, you are not a charter. Whatever you are doing there, you are just doing around. You are just doing around. So that's the power that document has. And please note, it's not all the time that document is usually a formal document. But that's one issue I usually have with a lot of people in class. Most people think that document essentially has to always be, it is good that it should be a formal document. But it could also be an email. Yes, it could also be an email. But it's preferable that it should be a document printable that you sign. That's what is assumed. I've lost money. Even though I teach these principles, sometimes I don't follow them and I get my fingers burnt. Almost every time I do it. Have you gone into projects with people but based on mutual trust? They call you, Gem Consulting, can you do this for us? Of course you can do. This is somebody you have been doing business with for some time. And then you just take some verbal instructions and then boom, 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 you deploy money. You deploy resources, you start spending money, start paying people, start doing these things. And then a week to when you think you are supposed to deliver, they call you, they just give the same way they use mouth to authorize you, they use mouth to cancel it. Start deliver. Have you experienced such nonsense before? And they be like, say you shall pay me. No, but
Very
I didn't
well.
tell you to start now.
Yes.
I've lost a lot of money to things like this. Because sometimes for relationship's sake, you don't want to use money as a barrier to taking action when some people try to reach out to you. Especially when they are clients that you have done big money projects, big ticket projects, and high ticket projects for in the past. They just call you in the name of fast. That guy has speed. That guy, he gives results. That guy, he delivers. When you want things done, call Ibrahim, you handle it. So they just give you instruction. You say, you are running like somebody like that they are chasing. It works for you sometimes, but it could burn your finger badly. Mr. Lako, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. That's serious matter. It happened to me too. And the whole of 2016, when oil price actually went down to as low as when Baba just took over,
Okay.
as low as $28
something the dollars per barrel.
Yes, it was very bad. So they suspended a lot of projects and all this thing. That was when Nigeria was officially in recession. So for that whole 1 year, the whole of 2016, I was jobless, no job at all. I was sleeping, drinking gari, and looking at madam's face all through. So somebody now called me. We actually worked together, but then while I was working, was running his company in a parallel level, yes, doing some procurement for Chevron. So eventually resigned and now focus on that his business. So he just called me that can I do as build documentation of a PRMS, of gas metering this. Well, now me we no get job. I ran there sharp the following morning. Okay, wire transfer 200K. Oh, worry. I was happy. We went for site visit, we came back, started doing some modeling and Google. One Friday like that, just called me. That very week, I went there on Monday. On Friday, called me that I don't I want to cancel. Cancel bow. My first fear was 200K. So, why they cancel it? Now, through party level that they just told him that they want to do the as but now when they now presented the formally to the Oga said no, it's not the priority in their this thing now, so they have to cancel it. I said the next question was me, as you could imagine, is Oga, the 200K. He said no, that one it's not your fault now, so just take it like that. Immediately I generator on them, and not those artificial they go visible. So it happens. Yes, it happens truly. Why relationship is good, build informal relationship and what have you. But when it comes to serious business like this, we should follow all those etiquettes that have been laid down. Like we rightly said, more often than not, if you try to jump all those procedures and what have you, we get our fingers burnt. But relationship bad, in some of those things. But the people that put the principle together, they know what they are saying.
Of course.
Thank you, sir.
My most recent experience with this thing. Thank you very much, Salako. My most recent experience with this one. I'm talking about somebody very, very senior in a major organization in the financial sector in Nigeria. Like somebody very, 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 very senior, like next to the MD of that big organization. That person is somebody full of ideas. That just throw something at you, and then you run. What actually brought us together was that he threw something at somebody. That person contacted me, and I was able to deliver without using money as impediment, without any formal structure, without any, just rough. So that really made me a bit close to him. And he said, this guy delivers, and none of that. He threw something at me recently. In fact, very bitter. One kobo he no give me. And we delivered completely, as in deliver. This is your project. We were expecting a lot this time. The new learning alert, down. Nothing. And that's the third time to be happening to this person. The first time he clicked, second time he clicked, third time, so fourth time, fifth time, Now, so his own subordinate now called me and said, anytime this person reaches out to you, as long as he doesn't attach that project to a project manager from the office, don't do anything. Can you imagine? His subordinate telling me about his own guy that you just be getting your fingers burned, you'll be wasting money. Understand? So as long as there's no structure around it, whatever you work on, let there be a structure around it. It may just be instruction over a phone call, and then you start assembling team, hiring, bringing developers on board, and all of that. Let there be a structure, even if it means an email with just a one-page document saying, work on this. You understand? And he said, even if he sent an email, don't do it until at least somebody else is copied in that email. So that's a structure. Something officially commissioning to say, work on this project. Not just a phone call. I was thinking about this thing. Can you do it? Say yes. Okay. When will you get me? When will you finish? And then you two, I have started giving it out. We'll finish it in 3 weeks. We'll do demo, clinical testing, this, blah, 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 blah. So those are key lessons. Those are key lessons. The interesting thing, like I've learned, is that if you decide to be formal, people will kind of know you as being formal and they will treat you as such. You understand? So that's that. And these are the very, very important aspects of what you want to clarify before you go into any project as much as possible. Of course, what is the level of... Sometimes project sponsor will give you the head, but they will not give you the body of authority. Sometimes they give you the head, the toes, and the fingers, but they will not give you the rest of the body. There are some projects in which, like I mentioned yesterday, you are just brought on board to head an existing team. They don't give you the hire and fire authority. So it is inside your charter that the sponsor will have given you the right level of authority that you have. They will have given you the authority of the level of authority that they are giving, that you can exercise on the project. On some projects, they give you money. Boom. Complete access. Administer this fund. On some projects, no. Anytime you need the money, you have to request. The fund managers are still maybe the accounting department or something. Not like they just give you money, go and spend. You understand? So all of those things will have been put in the charter. Of course, the name and authority of the sponsor. Sometimes sponsor could be very, very, it could be confusing to know who exactly the sponsor is. Sometimes, especially when you're dealing with a corporate organization that department. If you're not careful, you might not have the right understanding of who exactly your sponsor is or your sponsors are. So some other things, measurable project objectives, very important. I mentioned that. I've been mentioning it all the while. What are the measurable project objectives? Nobody should come up with big grammar that has no reality on ground, something that is not measurable. The problem with having a non-measurable objective is that how do you know when you have achieved it? What if you say you have achieved it and the sponsor says you have not achieved it? There will be trouble. It means you'll be chasing a goal that only the sponsor can define whether you have achieved it or not. The project might not end, especially if you are dealing with a sponsor who is mischievous. Oh my God. They can really, really, really make your life very, very difficult. God bless you if you come across a sponsor who is a perfectionist. And that perfectionist will continue to, torment you. But if at the beginning of the project, you already have some measurable objectives, this deliverable is deemed complete and perfect when A equals to something, B equals to something, C equals to something. At the end of the project, the moment A is that thing, B is that thing, C is that thing, nobody cares about any other thing. Nobody cares about any other thing. You just have to ensure that, you continue to put in you do it as, as you have defined it at the beginning of the project. Okay? Then you have high-level requirements, of course. Don't forget, it is the project manager's responsibility to go and collect requirements, define the scope of the project, and get the WBS and all of that, things like that. But at least you get some high-level requirement from your sponsor. At least that will give you an idea of what exactly you want to achieve with the project. For example, you're on a project, they can tell you, okay, I want to build a 4-story building. I want to build an estate. I want to do something. At least there'll be some high-level thing for you to at least commit to say, yes, I want to work on this project. This project is interesting. Then high-level project description. Then boundaries. Boundaries just mean what is in and what is out. What is in and what is out. For example, you are expected to build this app, but it's not part of the scope of the project that you implement XYZ, that kind of thing. So what are the boundaries? Okay, you're supposed to tar this road from X location to Y location. Those are the boundaries. Then what are your key deliverables? What exactly are those key things you want to bring on board at the end of the project? So part of those things you want to have is also, you want to have an idea of the overall project risk. The project charter who knows some of the risks that you can encounter. They would have put this in the charter and say, okay, these are some potential risks. It's just like saying you give somebody a construction project, and that person is going out of his way to tell you that, see, this area is prone to a money crisis. You have to be careful when you're managing it. So that's a way of at least putting it in the charter as a guide. So summary of milestone schedule. The milestone is just like a flag, a pointer in the future to say, by this point, you should have achieved this, something like that. So I want to put that as part of your schedule. Then pre-approved financial resources, all forms of pre-approved money and financial resources. Maybe stock, something, whatever, The key stakeholder register, you understand that. Project approval requirements and then project exit criteria. Project approval requirements is roughly, most times it has to do with money. So for example, you can have a project in which the best time is or you can have a project in which they give you money, but there is restriction on how you can spend it. For example, you can say the money is given to use in the special account, with the organization, but you cannot spend more than 1 million naira in a week. So these are some pre-approved financial constraints or restraints that is usually communicated by the sponsor to the project manager at the beginning of the project through the charter. Okay. Project overview statement. This communicates enterprise-wide. It communicates the intention, communicates the intent, the vision of the project enterprise-wide, that is across everybody. Don't forget that the whole idea of the process is you want to build a shared understanding. So of course, for you to build a shared understanding, then you have to ensure everybody is on board. It is your project overview statement has to be, brief as possible and as clear as possible. Captures the project objectives, problem or opportunity, and criteria for success. Authorization via the project charter or the approved project overview statement enables kickoff activities of the project. Remember, we mentioned it that when it comes to change, when you're managing change on a project, you have to ensure that the people you are managing it for, when you're managing change on a project, if something happens and it will impact your baselines, it has to go through a change control system. I think we discussed this before now. Okay. So how to run a project? After you have captured the project vision, understand the types of projects, understand the types and conditions around deliverables, you need to decide how you will run the project. That is, you want to have a choice of, are you going the agile way? Are you going the hybrid way? Are you going the traditional way? And then once you have done this, something that's important is they call it the kickoff meeting. That's that meeting in which, okay, you have brought your team on board. Okay, Mr. Lapa, you want to say something?
Okay, I actually have a question. The difference between project charter. I actually have a question.
All right, please.
Maybe if there's any, the difference between project charter and the project overview statement. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the practical example of a project charter from my experience so far. But when I now came across this overview statement, I said, it seems this one is a bit clearer to what we've actually what I'm used to. Like I mentioned the first day when this issue of a project charter came on board, I think I remember I asked that question, that what is project charter? So what the client usually hand over to us before commencement, telling us about a project that is upcoming and for us to do the needful in order to deliver it. It's actually, we call it scope of work. But from the description that I've seen under this scope of work,
okay.
So, and which is invitation to actually, they give us that scope of a document. So they list all these things inside, which is the content of this project overview now is what I can relate with, that yes, we have inside that scope of work, which by example is an invitation to come and participate in this project. However, the little details, the details about this project are X, Y, Z, the business justification, the area I want to do it, all those stuff will be listed in it. But that project charter, so I just want to know whether there's a huge difference between charter and project overview statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Charter and project overview statements. You see, don't let's get carried away with fanciful words. Your project overview statement is not particularly too different from this high-level project description. It's not too different from it. It's not different from, so the summary is your project overview statement is just one of the possible things that you have inside your charter. Your charter is not complete if it doesn't have like a high-level overview statement about the project. Now, let me ask you a question. Sorry, first of all, have I answered your question?
Yes.
What is the difference between charter and scope? Project charter, project scope. What's the difference?
I think the scope is part of the charter.
I said difference.
Because the charter is more inclusive than scope.
I missed part of what you just said. You said the charter, the scope is part of the charter, right?
Yes.
That's not entirely true. You keep forgetting an important principle, and it is the fact that the project manager is the one to write the project scope. What you have at the beginning of the project given to the project manager from the sponsor is the project bed. Or, okay, let me put it this way. What you have at the beginning of the project is supposed to be planned by the project manager. The project is supposed to be planned by the project manager. What you have at the beginning is like an initial project scope. They call it PPS, preliminary scope statement. PSS, preliminary scope statement, project preliminary scope statement. But it is when you have now done scope management. I remember having this discussion with you last week. When you have not done scope management, then you'll have collected requirements here and there. You'll have defined your scope, and then you'll have created a WBS. Then you now take that back to the sponsor. Say, okay, sponsor, at the beginning, you gave me like a summary view of the whole project. I have gone to interface with the stakeholders, and this is the definition of what the full project is supposed to look like. If it is approved, then it becomes a baseline. That is, it cannot change without, approval. So there's a difference between the initial scope statement that you have in your charter and the project scope itself that you have after proper project planning. Do you understand that, Mr. Ujedi? Okay. Hello, Mr. Lako, are you there?
Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. So project overview statements, it communicates enterprise-wide the intent and vision of projects, written with brevity and clarity, captures the project's objective, problem or opportunity, and criteria for success, authorization for a project charter or approved project overview statement, enables kickoff. It enables the kickoff activities planning. Okay. How do you run the projects? See yourself as, okay, now you're on site. You have done project management training. And you are following the steps to build a high-performing team. And then you have been put on board. Now you want to run the project. What do you do? So after you have captured the project vision, so the first thing is that you want to craft the project vision. You want to craft the vision. Because the vision is what will give you the urgency of knowing how to plan. So after you have captured the project vision and understood the types and conditions around this deliverable, you need to decide how you will run the project. Of course, which method, which approach? Do you want to answer all? After you have captured the project, after you have captured the project vision and understand the types and conditions around the deliverables, you need to decide how you run the project. Is it traditional, agile, or hybrid? I think you've hinted at this before. Your kickoff meeting is what you do. We discussed kickoff meeting yesterday. You do just jump into the project. It's always good that at least you have a meeting with your team members, define what works, have idea. Maybe you can even start discussing around your team charter. But more importantly, the kickoff meeting is for a broad overview of the project, of maybe the numbers and all of that. So iteration planning. We have discussed this several times. Mr. Lako, can you explain this? Iteration planning.
Okay, yeah. So I think iteration is the same thing as sprint, from my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually done at the beginning of the sprint. Then it's Scrum. It's usually done at the beginning of the sprint, usually 1 to 4 weeks. So it's actually to, as the name implies, to plan the user stories that will be done. I mean, the tasks that will be done within that sprint.
Okay, we've talked about sprint planning, we've talked about sprints, we've talked about retrospective. I think we have discussed, we've talked about daily stand-up. Mr. Abujali, daily stand-up. We said there are 3 questions. What are the 3 questions you ask in a daily stand-up?
Apologies, I don't remember.
Hello, Mr. Abujali.
I'm with you. Can you hear me, please?
Mr. Lako, can you see your Kanban board? Can you explain this?
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
So, hello, I said, can you explain? Remember the Kanban board we talked about?
Yeah, Mr. Jalil is still speaking. You asked him a question, so he's trying to answer.
Is he? No, I didn't hear him.
Yes,
talking.
he's talking.
So
How come I can't hear you?
Actually, can you hear me now?
I can hear you from here.
How come you can hear him and I can't hear him? It's out now. Mr. Lako, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can. I can see it.
Mr. Abdjalil, is he back?
No, it's not.
Hello, please, can you confirm you can hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
Yes, you can.
All right. I will really need you to apologies, I must have missed the daily stand-ups. A lot of questions came in the quiz, which I couldn't respond, or I responded with a guess. Can you just tell me more about daily stand-ups and what it stands for and all? My layman understanding is daily stand-up is supposed to be a review meeting on activities, project activities, either ongoing or scheduled.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Lako, do you remember daily stand-ups?
Yes, stand-ups usually I think 10 to 15 minutes every day, comprising all the project and the team, the execution team. They discuss about the progress they've made, the problem they are facing, and if there's any challenges.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. That's it. That explains it. All right. Thank you very much. Consensus, like you know now, from normal collective process to reach a decision that everybody can support. As simple as it is, it could be very, very complicated. This way, the same way you can select multiple, most of the time, from the angle of prioritization, because most of the time you wouldn't be able to do everything that comes to your mind. You wouldn't be able to take every decision. You wouldn't be able to take every option. So sometimes you use veto, dictatorial approach. Sometimes you use pronouns. One is okay. Sometimes you use like when you're prioritizing. Sometimes you just use like I just pick this. Sometimes you want to just ask yourselves. Let's pick amongst ourselves. We discussed some of this before. Fist of Five, Roman voting. These are some of those things you could use when you are prioritizing amongst yourself, either to truly prioritize or somebody should just pick one and let us move. So planning poker, expression techniques. I've not seen this planning poker myself before, but story pointing. You see, these two terminologies, they have some calculations to it, but don't bother yourself. It's not anything that has to do all of this. They're not part of the PM. Just know it. Just know that story poking it's something that has to do with trying to have an idea of what is done and what is left in a what do you call it? Have an idea of what is done and what is left in a in like an agile project. Story pointing uses a relative measure for the level of difficulty or complexity of a feature. Individuals assign story points. Okay. XP metaphor is an extreme programming technique that describes a common vision of how a program works. Metaphors should be simple and non-technical. It enables the team to understand the overarching approach that is being taken to provide a capacity or solve a problem. So just think of XP metaphor as just one of those XP metaphor as one of those agile approaches.
One of the estimation techniques.
Yes. XP metaphor is one of the estimation techniques under extreme programming. That XP itself is one of the agile. You know, when we discuss agile, we said there is extreme programming, there is Scrum, there is Kanban, there is, let me see which other one do I remember? Like quite a number of, there's Lean.
There's Lean.
There's Lean, like quite a number of them too. So XP metaphor is just one of those things that they use then when you want to do some estimation. So product box collaboration game. This technique is a technique used to explain an overarching solution. Stakeholders try to describe aspects of a solution in the same way a marketer might describe product features or benefits on a box. Okay. Helps with understanding different types of users of a solution, helps understanding their likes and dislikes, helps understanding the key aspects of a solution that drives the most critical value. So this last slide for lesson 1. Mr. Lako, can you read this to us?
Okay, guidelines to reach consensus and support the outcome of the parties' agreement. Team charter, number 1, which can specify how team chooses to handle certain scenarios and disagreements when they arise. For example, if team members disagree about the number of story points to estimate for a user story, the team charter may designate use of the higher estimate or that of majority vote rules. Then second guideline, seek consensus among the team where possible and recognize that sometimes it will not be possible.
Is that true? Selako, is that true?
Very, very true.
Okay. Sometimes consensus might not be possible. What can make it possible? Hello, Mr. Lako, what can make it not possible?
What can make it not to be possible? Anything, nothing's coming to my head though.
Well, may I see it as interest? When there's a misalignment of interest, it will be difficult for you to tell people to come together to a single point. Interest.
But can interest be totally overruled among project team members?
So take that again.
Stakeholders, let me put it that way. Can interest be totally overruled?
Overruled, Abi?
Stakeholders. Overruled. Can it totally be addressed fully? People's interest.
Well, and that's the reason why it will be difficult to have consensus. Because there will always be interest, and it's not all the time that they'll be meeting.
This is our industry. The people giving us problem majorly are even the client themselves. They low a lot of interest. Selfish one at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I want to get to the restroom. Sorry. We just finished lesson 1. We're about to start lesson 2. But just give me like a few minutes, please. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, sir.
Hello, Mr. Lako.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I was going to ask, do we have this material, this training material?
This particular slide, PowerPoint.
Yes, yes, not yet.
No, we don't. We don't.
Oh, so
But
the
when
only
I think
text.
Mr. Kolawole, is that what?
Sorry, you were going to say.
Mr. Kolawole actually made mention of it in our last class on Sunday, last Sunday. That can we get it?
Okay.
But the response of the facilitator is that he doesn't really want to bore us more with much materials that are now become cumbersome for us to read. But from what I've noticed, this slide was actually prepared from that textbook that we are reading.
Which is the
So they
ATTP stuff.
they presented that textbook in, is that what?
I said that is the ATTP textbook, all right?
Exactly that 400 and something page textbook,
404.
where
Okay.
this thing are divided into lessons and
Okay.
lessons
Okay.
and topics and
Oh,
enablers. Yes.
okay. Okay.
So that one is more comprehensive than just this. Normally they want to extract the key points from a
I
textbook and now
understand.
put in a slide. That is just what they did.
Okay.
So,
So the textbook will close the gaps here.
yes, a lot
Yeah.
more
Thank you, sir.
detailed.
All right. Sorry. Thank you very much. Let's jump right into the next lesson. So, Mr. Lapo, now only you do. We have quite a number of.
Maybe not. Network the worry about.
When you are the only one in class now.
Yes, I think maybe it's network that's worrying Mr.
Jalil. Yeah. So this one, starting the project, technically, is as though you can see it as the headquarters of a lot of your planning. Of course, some preliminary planning would have been done while you are working on creating a high-performing team. Let me also add to it that just as one of someone in class, I can't remember, mentioned it yesterday, that those things you are doing under creating a high-performing team, they are not like one-off. It's not like once you have done it, that's the end. You are free. Move on to starting the project. No. A lot of those things you see there, it's not, these things is difficult to want to box it into a linear form of execution. It's almost impossible and it doesn't make sense. So it's not linear. So now we want to start, well, moving to the next lesson, which is starting the project. Here you have 9 or 8 tasks. That should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 tasks, 9 topics. So let's start with the first one, which is to determine appropriate project methodology or project methods and project practices to use on the project. Now, let's talk about some of the related information. What is a business case document? I usually call a business case document, I sometimes use the word, it's a campaign document. It's a campaign document. Campaign in the sense that it's like a manifesto, sorry. It's like a campaign manifesto, wherein you want to convince some group of people to take a particular decision. That's what you are doing. You're trying to convince. So your business case document is a document that is written to convince some people to at least that this project makes sense. So inside it, all the forms of feasibility that prove the fact that, yes, the project makes sense, you put it there. All the possible benefits that you want to get from the project, you put it there. So it provides a basis for authorization of further project activities. Now, business need documents is a similar document. See, when they say document, don't get overwhelmed. Sometimes in very, very big organizations or big projects, these things are separate documents. But for smaller projects, some of these documents don't exist as separate documents. In fact, in some cases, they don't even exist in written form. A business case is written because there's a business need. So that is why the business case document is regarded as a prerequisite to the business. The business need document is regarded as a prerequisite to the business case document. Case here means you want to make a case for the business, for the project in the business. Well, before you say you want to sit down and write the business case, there must have been a need. For you to now say, okay, let me write a business case about this need. In the name of trying to convince that, yes, this makes sense, let us fund it or let us approve it. So if you want to say there's a need, then you want to, of course, describe the deliverables and then describe the requirements, what needs to be done. So those who write business case now say, okay, this needs to be done. Why? Because it's feasible. It makes sense. It will bring this value. It will bring this value. It will bring this benefit. It will bring this benefit. Okay, so you have your project implementation plan. You see, these are just fanciful grammar. In some places, you see project implementation plan. But the more technical word for it is your project management plan. That's a more technical word for it. Your project management plan. So when you're writing your project implementation plan, consider all stakeholders, schedules, risk, budgets, and quality. Actually, your project management plan is an amalgamation of all your subsidiary plans. So what is a subsidiary plan? When you do cost management, you have to write a cost management plan. You have your schedule management plan. You have your quality management plan, communications management plan. I think when we were doing high performing team, we came across resource management plan. So all of these something management plan, something management plan, something management plan, they all come together to form your project management plan. So it's like a combo document of many other sub-documents, or a combo document of many subsections, which the sections addressing different aspects of managing the project. So when you are writing this plan, it should give you as much clarity as possible for what needs to be done and how throughout the project. So when delivering outputs, you're asking yourself, okay, are we implementing them in a new existing business environment? Are we transitioning them into a live environment? Are we decommissioning or removing old systems, old processes, old materials? Are we ensuring training and knowledge transfer is complete and satisfactory? Rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning is another word for progressive elaboration. Yes. Hello, are we following? Rolling wave planning is another word for progressive elaboration. Progressive elaboration. Thank you. Progressive elaboration. What does progressive elaboration mean? It means when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. That's the meaning. Proceed as much as you can see. When you get to that point, you will see more and you will move again. Don't wait until you have 100% clarity on everything. Most of the time, at no point would you have 100% clarity at the beginning stages of the project. Whatever percentage you can have, use that as the base information to plan the project. And as you are moving on, things will be getting clearer. So that's why they use the word rolling wave planning. It's also called progressive elaboration. Progressive elaboration. Okay, so rolling wave is used either in agile or predictive. It's a form of progressive elaboration applied to the work of the project, your work packages. Work package. Anyway, WBS. We'll get to manage scope. Then you understand what work packages are. Work packages, planning packages, release package. Planning packages, release planning. Decompose work down to the known level of detail during strategic planning. Decompose work packages into activities and work progresses. Mr. Lapo, Mr. Bijeli, please, it's very important that you prioritize watching the videos because there is so much of content. that you will lose out if you don't watch those videos in the learning management system, especially videos around lesson 2, especially because the book you want to be reading is so scanty, is in fact is so scanty, so scanty, so scanty, and you'll be reading it. I can bet that you will not understand what you're reading. I bet you don't understand what you're reading. So please, it's important, especially if you look at the videos in the LMS. There are 2 types. There is one that is an extract from a class, and then there's another one that is more of add-on. You see, add-on. Those add-ons are more of explanations of specific concepts. Explanations of specific concepts. So it's very important that you watch. It's very important that you watch. So progressive elaboration is just the same thing as rolling wave planning. The iterative process of increasing the level of detail in a project management plan as greater amounts of information and accurate estimates become available. Okay. Mr. Abdjeli, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you mind reading this slide for us?
Okay. Overview, project management methodologies, methods, and practices. Agile. Team works collaboratively with the customer to determine the project needs. The coordination of the customer and the team drives the project. Predictive or plan-driven. Project needs, requirements, and constraints are understood, and plans are developed accordingly. Plans drive the project forward. Hybrid combines strategies from agile or predictive as required. Can switch approaches based on needs, changing work requirements, or circumstances.
Thank you very much. One thing you can see clearly from these things you see here is that agile is change driven. That is, continuously interface with your customers, get change, understand your changing requirements, and reflect it in the project. That's why you say the team works collaboratively with customers to determine project needs. They also work collaboratively with customers to determine project needs in plan-driven, project predictive too. But the vast majority of the planning of the predictive is done before you enter the project. Done before you enter the project. Then you come up with a plan that you want to use to guide what you will do throughout the project. So that's a plans drive the project forward, because as much as possible you want to precede things before they happen, and then you have a plan for it. Okay. So types of life cycles: you have predictive, you have hybrid, you have adaptive. Adaptive is agile. Adaptive just means what? Change driven. In predictive life cycle, early in the project, you want to determine the scope, the time, the costs, and other constraints early in the project. That's what you intend to do. Your predictive life cycle is also called traditional, or it's also called waterfall. So requirements are typically fixed. It's not as if requirements can change, but the system is inbuilt to be rigid. It can change, but of course, it will have to pass through a change control system. Not like in agile, that's nothing rigid per se has been put on ground. Everything is still floating, and when change comes, it's a matter of just taking note of it into your next iterations. So activities and work culminate in final output as a deliverable. So for adaptive and hybrid life cycles, it uses these methods in dynamic and complex environments. where change is a constant. Okay. So hybrid method combines predictive and adaptive approaches to offer flexibility to the team. So when are those things? Mr. Lako, do you mind reading that list and maybe giving us 1 or 2 words for each point on your understanding of how these things can make adaptive or hybrid more relevant in instances like this?
Okay, combine predictive and adaptive approaches to offer flexibility to teams. Great for projects that are seeking or willing to learn new methods or techniques, or with a mix of resources and experience levels.
No, that first
shorter...
point, just 1 or 2 sentences about it to explain and justify first.
Okay, that is good for projects that are seeking or willing to learn new methods or techniques.
Yes.
Can survive. If you want to learn a new method or technique or process, or as the case may be, the details of the new technique that I want to learn, you don't know. For example, because everything is not totally clear, we won't be able to have a perfect, for example, time frame for when this thing will be completed, that learning process will be completed.
Correct.
So we won't be able to know. However, since you know that I want to learn something, so you have an idea of what you want to learn. So that gives a bit of clarity to what is to be done, or to what you are embarking on. So that part of the activity is actually predictive. You know what you want to learn, but how long it will take you, because you don't know the details, you don't know the nitty-gritty of what you want to learn. So you don't know the time frame, don't know how long it will take you. So that part of it is adaptive. That's my understanding of that. I mean, that is an example that I can relate it to how I understand it.
Will I say for hybrid methods, going through this, I see it in manufacturing as new product development. Kind of when there's a new product we are developing, we don't know how much of it acceptability, stability test, and all that. I think we can, because why we say predictive is, in any case, we need to order equipment, and then we need to check the lead time. That's an aspect of it. But also in terms of the product itself, which the machineries are going to be producing, we would need to take it stepwisely, check with certain things, check, consult, and all. I think it's a very good example of where the hybrid methodology will work.
All right. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Lako, can you pick the next point?
Okay, the next point. Projects with the mix of resources and experience level. Mix of resources and experience level. I don't know.
You see, what this is just telling you is that if the project has too much uncertainty, it's better to go in the direction of change, either partially or entirely. If the project has, I've mentioned the purpose of uncertainty. If the project is structured in a way that you want to, the they want a lot of feedback, interaction, high level of involvement of stakeholder. You know that one. Who break into sprints? I know that at the end of each sprint, you want to be doing your sprint review meetings. You understand? Or if the project has, okay, I've mentioned uncertainty, a high level of, let me see what else. Yeah, I think it still comes back to not being fully clear, not having clarity on, you know where you are going, how you want to get there, it's not clear. Maybe what you want to deliver to, maybe you're still trying to get it, understand it, you are still trying to understand it, you know. So it's not best for you to now go for predictive, wherein you are forced to give a figure. That is how long it will take, this is how much it will cost, and all of that. It might be difficult. So if you say with a mix of resources and experience level, okay, that is a bit ambiguous. But if we have to explain it, what would you say is that if we could be having, I don't know, I'm just thinking this off my feet right now, maybe some coordination problem, I don't know, let me see. Let me think of mix of resources and experience levels. How does that have to do with if the mix of resources, okay, let me give an example. You are not sure about which particular resource that you need, and maybe some level of trial and error needs to be done. I don't know if that can be taken as an explanation for it. If some level of trial and error needs to be done for you to be able to get the right resources, the right hands on deck, not like you have it straight to the point of what exactly is needed. So when you know that you want to get it right, not at once, but in a number of iterations, you know, that still takes you away from predictive into the realm of either full iteration based or hybrid based. Mr. Lako, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, in some points. I'm also thinking that, okay, experience level differs. I mean, they are different. Along the line, there may be need for further upgrade of some knowledge and competencies, but that the level of the need of the upskilling may not be totally known now. So as the need arises, you don't try to what is that terminology? Rolling wave.
Rolling wave.
If you get to that level, if you get to that level, if we need more additional experiences and competencies, which we don't know, which we cannot actually plan for now, then we find a way to incorporate it into the project execution.
Correct.
I'm just saying. I'm not sure too.
Yeah, next point quickly.
Okay, with shorter iterative time frames. Shorter iterative time frames. Yeah, since iteration is there already, so by default, that part of it will be. So I think this is subjected to a lot of changes, a lot of feedbacks from maybe customer and what have you. So by default, that's made that part to be agile. But because it's short, we may have some clarity on what we want, on the likely duration it will take us. Yeah, but nonetheless, I see some back and forth in terms of this thing, in terms of feedback from customers and what have you.
Yes, next point.
With high stakeholders involvement, because of a level of interest and the interest will be higher, the influence will be higher too. So by the time you are solving one, another one is coming up, and so the time frame for the delivery will be a bit, will not be totally clear now because of the high involvement of the stakeholders.
Okay. That's one perspective.
What that means that the level of influence will be higher, the interest will be higher.
Yes, sure. Yes. You can also look at it from the angle of if the engagement is high, there'll be so much of feedback, and the agile sprints kind of system already, is more suitable for situation whereby the customer is expecting to be seeing things very often.
Yes, sir.
All right. So with
projects with in-depth requirements. So this by default is subjected to a lot of changes. However, you know what you are driving at.
Okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Maybe a combination of the two.
So,
yes, sir.
Mr. Abdjalil, I don't know. You did not offend me, but I don't know why I've not been calling your name.
No issue, sir. I'm very much attentive.
Okay. Agile, adaptive. In some instances, you find that they subdivide it into incremental and iterative. Agile is a combination of both incremental and iterative. But sometimes you find instances in which they break it down into incremental and iterative. But the incrementalness of it is part of agile, and the iterativeness of it is part of agile. But sometimes something could be iterative and maybe not necessarily incremental. Let me give you an example.
Sorry, sir. So first and foremost, you should get the definition of incremental and iterative.
Okay.
We have an idea, but just for us to hear the expertise view on it. Definition of.
Look at this. So iterative, just those things we have discussed earlier. Iterative is you want to do one thing and you continue repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating until you get it right. One thing. Repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating until you get it right. But incremental is what we explained, wherein all those things you are repeating, it's not the same things that you're getting wrong and trying to correct yourself upon, but rather it is more of like in a particular incremental, in a particular round, you do a version. The next round, you do version 2. The next round, you do version 3. The next round, you do version 4. The next round, you do version 5. For each round, you are adding more to what you have done. You are increasing the features of what you have done. That's agile, as we talked about. But something could be truly iterative, in which, okay, you go around, you do a particular round to correct the problem. Maybe at the end of that round, you don't correct it. And then round 2, let's go correct the problem. And then you don't get it. And then round 3, let's correct the problem. And then you don't get it. And then you keep going round in iterations until you try to correct the same problem until you get it right. So Agile now takes the iteration of saying, okay, we want to go in multiple rounds, but takes the incrementalness to say, okay, in each round, we are not doing the same thing. In each round, we are doing previous round plus an enhancement, previous round plus implementation of changes, previous round plus added wisdom or feedback of previous round. I don't know if you understand what I'm just saying. What I'm saying.
Yes, it's clear. It's clear now. Combination of the two.
Kind of.
While you are trying to perfect that service or products, so there are some increase of the added features and improvement and what have you.
Correct. Okay, so Mr. Abdjalil, can you read this to us, please?
Adaptive life cycles, agile. Iterative repetition with incremental deliveries.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
It's a combination. Tell us that agile is a combination of an iterative approach as well as an incremental approach, right?
Correct.
So incremental, determine project scope early in this project life cycle. Continuously assess and modify time and cost estimate as the team's understanding of the product increases. Iterative uses series of iterations to add functionality to deliverables within a predetermined time frame. The deliverable is considered complete only after the final iteration.
Correct. Now that we have done that, we'll jump into the main of the course. Let's start just like what we had in the old syllabus: scope, cost, time, schedule, blah blah blah. I want to enter into something like that now. But before we enter, let's do 10 minutes break because we have to be sure we have energy to enter it. Please, I'm emphasizing again. You will be doing yourself a lot of disservice if you don't watch the video. Because some areas here will be outrightly skipped. Because explaining them is like a whole class. For example, if you don't have a good work breakdown structure, you do yourself a lot of disservice. Work breakdown structure is a critical thing for you to understand. In fact, breakdown structure is even useful to us in our personal life. Because remember the principle of always break things down. Never mind the big dance. Remember that principle. Fundamental principle. So we'll start with micro project scope. So let's do 10 minutes break. We'll come back to 15-20. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are we ready? Mr. Lako, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Jalil, are you with us?
I am, sir.
All right. Let's proceed. My scope. Personally, we've actually had a lot of conversation around the concept of scope before now. I gave us a generic formula for understanding something management plan. When you say something management plan, what is that thing? What's that document about? Mr. Jalil, can you remember? Mr. Jalil, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
I asked a question. I said, when you hear something management plan, scope management plan, cost management plan, source management plan, schedule management plan, when you hear something management plan, what's that document for?
The document is, what is it for? No idea. No idea. It's a document set up to be reviewed, right? Or subject to review.
Can you see my screen?
Scope.
Read it out, read it out.
Okay, scope management plan. A component of the project or program management plan that describes how the scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and validated.
Simple. That word scope, you can bring it out and put any other thing there. That answers my question.
Oh, okay.
So essentially what I'm talking about here is that your something management plan is a document that explains the hows, the what's about that something on the project.
Okay, correct.
How would that something be done? What metrics do you want to use? How do you want to manage that something throughout the project? How would you develop everything about it? How do you monitor everything about it? How do you plan that thing? How do you control that thing? How do you validate that thing? You know, how do you carry out all the what's and the hows? What, how about that thing? Either it is communication, either it is scope, either it is schedule, either it is cost, either it is communication, quality, procurement, whatever it is. So you'll be coming across something management plan. You come across it multiple times in different forms, but the core is the same thing. It's like a document that is supposed to guide how you do that something throughout the project. So your scope management plan now talks about, okay, so this should include processes to prepare your project scope statements. Yes. Clear, okay. You should include processes to prepare your project scope statements. It enables the creation of the WBS from the detailed project scope statements. Okay. What's the meaning of that? Let me explain. Where are you? Where are you? Are we together? Can you see my screen?
Gem Center.
Yes, from this end.
Okay, beautiful. You can see from here now. Scope management. Now, we are still doing the same thing from what you can see on the screen, but it's just we are using a new set of English and presenting it a different way, but it's still essentially the same thing we are doing. So in the previous syllabus, when we had 49 processes, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 processes under scope management. Now, you want to do scope management on a project. You all start with a plan. It has to be, what plan do you have to manage scope? You draft a plan for your project. Now, Mr. Lako, what's the next process on that scope management? Hello.
Collect requirements.
I can remember that I've explained this thing before. What does collect requirement? What does it mean?
Yeah, we collect requirements from all stakeholders, the drawings, the other documents that may be required for the project, the regulatory requirements too.
I want, I wish, I like, I prefer, all those, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. Meet people around. You understand? All relevant stakeholders that you're supposed to meet to get requirements from. You go around to get requirements from them. So, Mr. Lako, after you have, let's assume 15 people, some 2 hours with each of them. Now you now have different notes, different jottings, different recordings, different this of what people want about the project. What next do you do?
Now the full scope, define the full scope of the project.
How do you do that?
By using all the requirements that have been gotten.
Right.
So you now have a clearer picture of the scope.
Into the proper scope of the project. Now, at that point that you have done that, what's the next thing you're supposed to do?
Now develop the work breakdown.
Structure. So your WBS is your scope, okay? Now I know the full scope of the project. But you will never be able to manage a project by attacking the scope directly. It does not work. Even whether predictive or adaptive, you don't attack the scope directly. You break it down into bits and you start conquering them bit by bit. So in Agile, you break things down into user stories, you populate your backlog, and then you reprioritize your backlog such that the topmost ones are of the highest priority, and then you start attacking them in that order. So your WBS is that's where that terminology decomposition. You have your full scope, decompose it into level 1. Maybe that level 1 will have like 5 things. Then level 2, the first one of those 5 things might be broken down into 3. The second one might be broken down into 2. The third one might be broken down into 10. The fourth one might be broken down into 4. The fifth one might be broken down into 6. So that level 3 now, you see, each of those items can now be broken down again. The lowest level in the work breakdown structure now contains what we call your work packages. Your work packages. Your work packages. Now, So I assume you now understand when we say your scope management plan enables the creation of your WBS from the detailed project scope statement. So, Mr. Lako, can you explain this line?
Yes. Enable the creation of WPF or the detailed project scope management. Yeah. Based on the steps that I've just explained now, after the scope management has been done, you collect all the requirements, then you now define your scope, a full scope. I mean, like I said, okay, full scope of the project. So this scope will now be decomposed into WBS.
Your scope management plan enables the creation of WBS from your detailed project scope. That's what I want you to explain.
Scope management plan is the first thing to be developed. Then after, what are the requirements for me to now
wait, you're not answering the question. The question says, justify how does this project manage the scope management plan enable creation of the WBS from your scope statement? Just one word. Explain. First of all, do you understand the question?
I don't get that question. I don't think so.
On this slide, it says management plan.
Yeah.
Scope management plan should include processes to prepare a project scope statement. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Scope management plan enables the creation of your WBS from that scope statement. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Explain.
As the project scope statement will be made, then the full scope will now be decomposed into WBS. Don't know.
Yes, you understand it. You know that thing that is missing, eh? And it is the fact that that first point explains it now. Okay, justify that first point. Scope management plan should include processes to prepare the project scope statement. Explain it. Yeah, Mr.
Processes to prepare. Yeah, I'm with you. Should include processes to prepare project scope statement. The definition of okay, if we say something is management, that means it will define it, then it will develop, and how the document will be, let's say document now will be developed. It seems I don't get that question.
You have just answered it. You have forgotten that your scope management plan itself is a giant book of how, what, regarding everything about scope on the project. You have collected requirements everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Your scope management plan will contain some information regarding, okay, how do you synthesize your requirements into a project scope statement? When requirements conflict, what do you do? Your plan will have already guided you on that. Now you have your scope statements. You want to break it down. How do you break it down? How do you decide to break something down into 5, or break it down into 2, or break it down into 7? Which characteristics do you want to use to break it down? How many levels are you going? Do you want to do 3 levels, or you want to do 2 levels? These are information that you'll have put in your scope management plan. For example, in some organizations, there are some heuristics that they use. They continue to break down until you get to something that will take you roughly about 40 hours. Once you get to a level of something that will take about 40 hours, you don't need to break it down again. Are you following, Mr. Lako? Do you understand what I just said?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Abdul, are you with us? So your scope management plan establishes how the scope baseline will be approved and maintained. That also gives you an idea that your scope management plan will have been pre-written. It will have contained these guidelines. How will your scope baseline be approved? What is your scope baseline? Your scope baseline is a combination of some documents. Your project scope statements, your WBS itself, and your WBS dictionary. Don't worry, we'll explain that shortly. What is a baseline? A baseline is like a standard that has been approved that you cannot change anyhow anymore. The moment your scope has been approved, it has become baseline, meaning that you can go and change all times inside again. So the moment you draw up your scope and you draw up your WBS and you draw up your WBS dictionary, you go back to your sponsor to say, okay, at the beginning of the project, you gave me a scope statement, a preliminary scope statement. I have done the due diligence, and this is now an expansion of what you gave to me. Kindly review. If you say this is okay, approved, please proceed. What is the baseline here? It has been baselined. Mr. Lako, please confirm you understand what I just said.
Yeah, very well. It's a popular terminology and schedule baseline. So
beautiful.
Understand very well.
Mr. Abdul, please confirm you are with us.
I'm with you, sir.
And now with us. Good.
I'm with us.
Okay. So your scope management plan specifies how formal acceptance of your deliverables will be done. And then your scope management plan can be formal or informal, can be broadly framed or highly detailed. That tells you an important point here that sometimes these documents might not be completely formal. Sometimes these documents might be ad hoc. But at least let there be some level of, there should be something that you can rally around to say, this is our agreement, this is what we are supposed to do. It should not be just rough oral, everything oral, that has no documentation. Hey, it's risky. So when you are doing your text for scope management, expert judgment, things you do here has to do with expert judgment. Because you want to talk to either internal or external people to give you some inputs into what you want to do. Alternative analysis meetings. So what's a project requirement? Requirement is just I want, I like, I wish, something, an act, a condition, a need for the from your stakeholders. Maybe dates, contractual obligations, constraints. Something. Okay, no. Sorry. Those are requirements, not project requirements in this case now. Project requirements in this case now are okay. Sorry, what I just explained to you now is product requirement. Product requirement is those things about just if the product is like a house now, okay, the house should be 4 stories. That's a product requirement. It should be this particular design. That's a product requirement. It should have the kind of compound like this. That's part of the product requirement. But project requirement in this case now is largely around what are those things about those more than this. Try to finish around this time. There are constraints. Those general things about the project itself. So, okay. And that now takes us to project scope and product scope. Project scope is all what needs to be done to finish the project. Product scope is the product, the description of the product itself. So, Mr. Abdul, if I were to ask you, which is larger, the project scope or the product scope?
Project scope.
Why?
Usually, products is a subset of projects.
Correct. Correct. Thank you very much. Okay, so tolerance. You know, I just mentioned something about baseline. Mr. Abdul, what did I explain about baselines now, shortly? Quickly, please. That time they go. They're almost 4 o'clock again now. Okay, you are not there. So, Mr. Alako, can you tell us, what did we explain about baselines a while ago?
Sorry, I've been speaking though. I didn't know it was mute.
Okay.
So I'm saying it's what was agreed by all stakeholders.
No,
not all stakeholders.
So, in the context of project management, the person that does baselining is your sponsor or any other delegated, sponsor. Not all stakeholders. Okay. Is that thing that becomes like the holy grail?
The owner of the project.
Yes.
What is agreed with the owner of the project?
Yes. So the moment something has been baselined, it cannot change. The moment you say, okay, so what you're telling me now is that we need 7.5 million for this project. Yes, approved. Go ahead. If something now happens tomorrow now that 7.5 million naira will change to 7.9 million naira, you cannot take that decision on your own because that 7.5 has been baselined. If it must change, you have to go back again to get authority or to get authorized for it to change. If the project has been baselined to say it will take 6 months and 2 weeks, if something will change to 6 months and 4 weeks, you have to go back and get authority. You can't take that decision on your own because it has been baselined. But now there's a concept of tolerance. Tolerance says that, okay, so that you don't go and be disturbing your sponsor all the time. You can say, okay, I've approved 7.5 million naira for the project and I give you tolerance of 500K. If something happens that will increase 7.5 million to 8 million, go ahead. You don't need to disturb me. If something happens that will increase 6 months, 2 weeks to 7 months, go ahead. You don't need to disturb me. I give you 2 weeks tolerance. I give you 500K tolerance. You understand? So that way, if something happens, the project manager too has some small window to at least accommodate some changes within the baseline, as long as it is within the tolerance range that has been pre-approved for him. So you can have tolerance in budget, tolerance in schedule, tolerance in quality, and then some other forms of requirements. Now, the concept of EAFs and OPAs is a very, very critical thing for us to understand, especially around the inputs to a lot of what we are discussing. A lot of times, EAFs, enterprise environmental factors, affect your decisions on the project, affect your activities on the project. Enterprise environmental factors are largely things that influence the project, but the project manager does not have direct control over. It's just something around, sometimes internal to the organization, sometimes external to the organization, you know, but they have influence on the project. But the project manager doesn't have direct control over it. Mr. Lako, can you give me one example? Wake up. Oh, there. Mr. Jalil, do you mind? One example, EF.
Talking about the dollar fluctuation.
Beautiful. Foreign exchange fluctuation. You have absolutely no control over it. And these things have implication on your procurement. They have implication on your resource management has implication on your cost management and many other areas. Beautiful. Weather. You understand? Weather. Government policies.
Government policy.
You understand? So those are critical EFs. Why do we need to know them? We need to know them because we need to factor them in when you are planning the project. You don't just say because you don't have influence over them, you just leave yourself open to randomness. That's terrible. Now, OPAs. See, the simplest way for you to think of OPAs. OPA means organizational process assets. OPA means organizational process assets. So in this case now, I'm coming, please. In this case now, the simplest way to think of it is think of documents that the organization has, that they have been collating and collecting over the years that they've been doing projects and they have been operating as an organization. That those documents or those of which you used to do as a project manager. For example, templates. If you want to write your project management plan, if you want to write your cost management, you don't need to go and start from scratch. Can you simply go to the archive of the organization to say, okay, you have been doing cost management for multiple projects. Let me see your templates. Or let me see the past. Let me see, give me any 3 cost management plans that I've done before. Let me just model after it. Templates, databases, even your lessons learned repository. That's part of the OPAs of the organization. Company policies. No, not company policies. Company manual. Because policy is EF, but the manual, the documents, is an OPA. So now look at this. Mr. Lako, yeah, can you quickly give, as you raise your hand, let's take that from you quickly.
Okay. So I just wanted to share my scenario, me and experience.
Okay.
When I just started my procurement experience, so there are some materials to be procured from UK, Netherlands in particular. So, but because of their weather, or the cold weather always, so the little time they have for summer, they don't joke with their summer holidays. They don't joke with it at all. So that time the offices will practically be empty because they go on vacations and what have you. So while planning for my procurement, I didn't factor that into this thing. Sincerely, it cost us a lot of what is it called? Lag in the schedule. Yeah, a lot of setback for like as high as six weeks. So that lessons was learned. I'm talking about 6 years ago. So subsequent. Hello?
You said as high as something. It gave you setback by as high.
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So so that was now learned here that okay, when planning for foreign procurement, you see that July, August, September, they don't joke with it. So we have to factor that there are summer holiday into it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, go ahead and read this slide to us. Examples, various examples of EFs. Do you mind sharing? Yeah, I'll read from the slide, please.
Okay, internal, organizational culture, structure, and governance. Geographical and distribution of facilities and resources, infrastructure, resource availability, employee availability. Those are internal. For the external, marketplace conditions, social and cultural influences and issues, legal restrictions, commercial databases, academic research, government or industry standards, financial considerations, and physical environmental elements.
Okay, yeah, read this about OPAs for us too, quickly.
Okay, OPAs, processes, policies, and procedures are established by project management office, PMO, or another function outside of the project, not updated as part of project work. Then templates, life cycles, and checklists can be tailored but not updated for a project. organizational knowledge bases are updated throughout the project with project information. The updated information such as financial performance, lessons learned, and performance metrics and issues and defects.
All right, thank you very much.
But sorry, I don't seem to understand. Go back, please.
Yeah.
I don't seem to understand here. I know you explained that we should look at OPS as like templates, like standard.
I just use that for you to understand. There are
yes,
more...
I understand. But this is now talking. Okay, this is now talking about those documents now updated, checklist now updated, and so I'm trying to relate.
Okay. Policies, procedures, and policies, processes, and procedures. This is just talking generally now. Policies, this is just talking generally about policies, processes, and procedures. Established by the PMO, yes, not updated as part of project work. What this is telling you is that if I have a staff manual, I want to recruit. Imagine if I want to recruit as part of an organization, as part of a project. You are a consultant on a project, and you want to recruit for a project for an organization. And the management is telling you that whoever you recruit for the project are subjected to the same principles as their own direct staff. What's that? It tells you that to know those principles, you need which documents? You need their HR documents, right? Mr. Lako, no, sure. Exactly.
Yes.
But the fact that you need their HR documents, does it mean that you update their HR documents? No. Updating their HR document is not in your own sphere of responsibility. You just simply want to use those things. You want to leverage on them to be able to get your own work done. So it's not as if those documents are given to you to update them or to work on them. No. They are given to you to guide you to do your own work. So as part of you working on your project, you are not there to update those documents, assets of the organization. Templates, life cycles, checklists. You pick it, you apply it to your own projects. And then once you apply it to your own project, it becomes part of your own documentation for your project that you file back into the archive of the organization at the end of the project. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, very well.
Okay. So document analysis, these are part of those things you also do when talking about managing school. See, OPAs, EFs, they are everywhere. There's hardly anything you want to do in managing a project that you not leverage on OPAs, that you not need to factor in OPAs and EFs in what you are doing. There's hardly anything you want to do. And that is the reason why, if you look at this slide, they said projects exist and operate in environments that may influence them favorably or unfavorably. OPAs and EFs are two major categories of project influences. That is two major categories of things that can influence the project, either positively, or let me say either favorably or unfavorably. So document analysis, derive new project requirements from existing documents. You know, you want to maybe business plans, service level agreements, marketing materials. You need some information. You know, we are talking about requirements. We're talking about, we want to collect requirements, you want to do some other things regarding scope. And so to get the scope, sometimes you might need to look at documents. Not all the time that you collect requirements verbally. Sometimes you collect requirements by investigating, by reading documents. Maybe imagine an example of you reading documents is bug reports, feedback documentation from some other things. If you are brought on board to work on a project to correct something, If there are some documentation of errors of the previous one, it forms part of where you pick your requirements from. Focus groups. Bring people together, talk to them at once. That's focus group. You know, interviews, questionnaires, surveys. Benchmarking is just comparing against another established standard. Benchmarking against an established standard somewhere. Maybe best practices. Then you do interviews. All of these are just methods that you use to actually get your when you're managing your scope. It's 4 o'clock now. Yeah, 20 minutes. Let's go on break. Okay?
Good, sir.
Let me stop Jelly.
Yes, sir.
All right. This guy is not back. Let's just give him another exact 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
It's not back.
He is now.
Alako, gaskiya. What's happening now?
My laptop, they do nonsense.
Okay.
As a Rami.
That was anyway. Welcome back to the class. Group decision-making techniques. We're talking about the various ways in which people managing scope, collecting requirements, and all of that. How do they get their data? We talked about interviews, surveys, focus groups, document review, document analysis, benchmarking, and quite a number of things like that. So group decision-making techniques here, could involve voting, autocratic decision-making, or multi-criteria decision analysis. That one is an interesting one. Don't worry, can't discuss that in class. There are different types of voting. If you remember, there was this issue of 12 to 3rd in Nigeria many years ago. That was 1970 Kinikon. Abu.
About Richard Akinjide.
Yes, correct. Richard Akinjide, correct.
1979.
Yeah, 1979, right? Yes, correct. Exactly. So there are different types of voting. It's not all the time that it is majority. Sometimes there's unanimity. Sometimes there's plurality. Different types of voting. There's block voting. Different types of. So these are some of those things you want to agree to at the beginning. Say, okay, when we want to make decisions, for example, when there are conflicts, sometimes you might have to, meet with some stakeholders to try to reconcile some differences. So when you get your data, you have different requirements. How do you reconcile? How do you synthesize? Sometimes you might use some tools like mind mapping, affinity diagrams. Observation is also a very valid way of getting data. There's some data that no matter how much they tell you, it won't be accurate. You have to see them doing their job for you to observe and see, get what you want. You also have facilitated workshops. You have context diagrams. Context diagram is, there are certain times in which you want to uncover the relationship between some things, but they will not be very clear to you until you sit down and map or draw out the interrelationship between them physically. It's when you have it vividly shown to you that maybe some things can get clearer. Sometimes when you're just thinking in your head, it might just be so cumbersome. So context diagram is a way of drawing things out and trying to figure out, okay, how is it related to this? What does this need from this? What are the various entities around this? Context diagram could be, it's very important. When you are thinking, when you are brainstorming, sometimes some things could be very, hidden away until you use tools like context diagram to at least, show it up. So storyboarding is a prototyping method using visuals or images to illustrate a process or to represent a project outcome. Prototyping, we already know what prototyping is all about. It's about just getting like a version of what you want to do, a mini version, so at least to have a visual, get feedback, before you go and start building the main thing itself. So requirements documentation, please, as much as possible, when you collect requirements, ensure that your requirements are not unambiguous. I mentioned it last week. Don't collect requirements and say, I want a beautiful website. What does beautiful mean? The word beautiful is very, very tricky. What does beautiful mean? Beautiful could mean many things. So the way I do it is that, okay, I say, okay, can you give me like 5 or 3 different websites that meets the requirement of your beautiful? So that at least there's a standard, there's a benchmark to be met, not just random adjectives that have no substance, that can be easily said, that you can easily say no to. By the time you think you have done something beautiful, they will say no. So requirements need to be unambiguous. It should be measurable. It should be testable. It should be traceable. Traceable means that at any point in time, you should be able to trace it back to say it is Mr. X that brought it, that gave us this requirement. Yes, it's Mr. X that makes this request. There are times in which some things could happen and you want to trace it back. Where is the source of this requirement? For example, if you realize there's a conflict, two major stakeholders, you are reviewing something, you realize two major stakeholders have said you should do opposite things. You understand? Or before you have seen a requirement from chairman, and then you now see another requirement somewhere from that is opposite of what chairman wants. Before you knock it out, you want to find out where did this thing come from, so that you know how to manage manage your communication and conflict management. Requirements should be complete, should be consistent, and should be acceptable to key stakeholders. Formats can be simple, just whatever works for you in terms of how you document it. But the most important thing is that it shouldn't be too cumbersome and difficult to maintain, because you also have to maintain your requirements too, because requirements can change. There are different types of requirements. There's business requirements, there's stakeholder requirement about stakeholder, there's transition and readiness requirement. That talks about, okay, maybe after you are finished, and then you now want to hand over, maybe training, maybe blah, blah, blah. Quality requirement. The project itself is all about fulfilling quality requirements. Then general project requirements. Then you have functional requirements. Then you have non-functional requirements. It's just like in a department. You have functional departments. No, is it functional? Core department, non-core department. Like for an engineering firm, accounting is a non-core department. So examples of non-functional requirements. Okay, let me use IT, for example. You want to build a software. A software that has feature A, feature B, feature C, feature D, feature D. Those are general functional requirements. But they are non-functional requirements. Security, for example, is a non-functional requirement. It's not core. It's not the core feature of the software. That security is not a core feature of the software. It's important, but it's not the core. I want an accounting package. The core functionality is the accounting package. That's a functional requirement. The accounting features. But security is also important. You cannot say because they did not mention security as part of the requirement, you say you not include it. No, it's a non-functional requirement that has to be there. Continuity. You must have some level of backup, you must be able to recover from a disaster. Capacity. Does it have a capacity to handle the request? Availability. Is it something that will be going down every time? So to manage all of these things about requirements, you also have a requirements management plan. So requirement management plan is like a sub to the scope management plan. Usually, almost sometimes they are the same thing, sometimes they are different, but it's still around the same concept. But scope management plan is about the general project scope. Requirement is just about requirements. How will requirements be collected? How will it be, validated? How will it be documented? How will it be managed? So how will it be prioritized? Which metrics do we want to use to measure? You say, okay, requirements should be measurable. How do you want to measure different types of requirements? Some things are tangible, some things are intangible. How do you want to measure intangible? You understand? For example, you work on a project to increase the happiness of clinical. How do you want to measure happiness? So some things like this, you want to put them in your requirements management plan. Traceability. How do you manage versioning? So requirements traceability matrix is another document that you use to trace requirements, to tie requirements back to the source. It's called requirements traceability matrix. So when you want to collect requirements, you move around. What are some documents you need? You move around. You move to your stakeholders. You look at your requirement management plan for ideas on how you want to collect requirements. Look at your scope management plan for ideas on how you want to manage the requirements and how requirements feed into the scope. Look at a project charter. Why do you need to look at a project charter? Because it's possible that the project charter has already given us some requirements too. Look at the stakeholder register. Why? Because stakeholder register contains the stakeholders that you want to go and collect requirements from. So project scope statement is just the scope. We've discussed the scope many times. So this is an example of what a scope looks like. So scope, tools, and techniques, just some of all those things we have discussed before now. Expert judgment, facilitation, product analysis, multi-criteria, decision analysis, alternatives analysis. So product analysis is a tool to define scope by asking questions about the product and forming answers to describe the use of the product, characteristics of the product, and other relevant aspects of the product. Okay. Develop a project scope statement. I've been talking all the while. I'll let somebody else talk. Mr. Abdul, can you read this to us, please?
Develop a project scope statement. 1. Review. Scope management plan, developing, monitoring, and controlling project scope activities. Project charter. High-level project description and product characteristics and project approval requirements.
Justify. Why do you need justify? Why do we need to review the project charter when we want to develop a project scope statement? Justify. Why? Why is it important?
It's important to review the project charter because it contains all that the project is. Since we are discussing scope statement, and the project charter is all encompassing. It's important that we do that. More importantly, because we need a buy-in of the upper management, or let's say of the sponsor.
No. Oh my God! I thank God I asked that question. No. Yeah, Mr. Lako, let me hear your own justification.
Okay, so project charter by itself contains high level project scope and requirements. Then part of it may be preliminary scope statements. So a big scope and what is it called? Preliminary scope project requirements may be a part of the charter. So since we are searching everywhere to gather all our requirements, so I think the first point of course should be
not gathering requirements. Now we have gathered requirements. We now want to develop a project scope statement.
Yeah, the prelim. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I think I'm mixing things up. Yeah, it's even more applicable in the sense that the high level project description is already is that project charter. So at least the as the name implies, the high level, so it can now be further broken down into the project scope statements together with the requirements that have been gathered.
Okay. Mr. Abdul, do you want to modify your submission? Mr. Abdul, do you want to modify your submission?
Not at this time. Perhaps my delivery is not clear, but in my head, I think I have a good understanding where we need to review.
Tell us. Yeah. Tell us. Project manager, communication management is key. Yeah, tell us what you have in your head. Say it again.
Okay, we need to review the project in developing the scope statement. We need to review the project charter, and the reason for this is because the project charter in any case consists of all requirements and product characteristics.
Wrong. Actually, all requirements in the project charter that is done when initially at the beginning of the project. Where we get all requirements?
Project approval requirements. It's there now.
You said all requirements is different from project approval requirements. Project approval requirements.
In the context of this statement, we are talking about, we are referencing projects, sir.
Okay, I'm listening.
I'm not. Apologies. It's not being. It's not an argument. I'm just thinking aloud, right?
I understand you. You see, don't just use some terminologies freely, because it will burn you badly in situations, based questions. It will burn you badly. That's why anytime you misuse a keyword, I will call your attention. Don't say that. How can you say project charter contains all requirements? That is a fallacy. Did you get all requirements? Okay. No. You see, you don't understand project charter. Project charter is like that initial first thing at the beginning of project, first document that is given to the project manager. Take, we are going to start the project.
Okay, it's not a project charter is not usually detailed, and that's why it's high level, right?
People they say high level, high level.
Yes.
You have missed some important part of the class. Sincerely, you have missed some important part of the class. You have missed some important part of the class. Project charter is that initial. I remember when we discussed project charter, we said, okay, is that first document that even signifies that the project has started. It is the project charter that says, oh yeah, project starts. You understand? So it contains some base information from the sponsor to guide the project manager to go and start his own level of planning.
Correct.
It is when this project manager now does his own planning. First of all, he comes up with guideline of how will he do scope. Then once he has the guideline in his scope management plan, then he goes around to collect requirements. When he collects requirements, then he creates his own project scope statement. You understand? So, but don't forget that the project scope statement that he's creating at that time, he's not creating it from the cloud. It's not from his head. He's creating it based on the requirements he has collected around.
Inputs from the sponsor, inputs from stakeholders.
He has collected requirements, he has moved around. He has done interviews, he has done surveys, he has done document reviews, he has done focus group, he has moved around, collected requirements, and then he now wants to synthesize all those inputs, all those collections into the project scope statements. But before he now finalizes on it, he needs to go back to the charter to say, okay, all this I've collected, I need to look at it in relation to the original high-level overview that the sponsor gave me in the charter. Because there are instances in which the requirement you collect might be different from what the sponsor said he wants to do originally. I hope we know. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. That by the time authority sponsor solo by the time you go and engage larger stakeholders, you realize that people have a different vision from what the sponsor wants. Then that is where you come in as project manager. It's your job to reconcile positions. It's your job to reconcile positions. Of course, ultimately, the sponsor's decision is what will, overrule every other person. But at least you should do some reconciliation. You don't just throw opinions out. You reconcile. So you cannot just form the project scope statement without going back to the charter. So, okay, this is what sponsor has said. This is what other stakeholders have said. Oh, yeah, let me reconcile. Because there can only be one project scope statement. There can't be project scope statement, other stakeholders. Project scope statement, sponsor. Now, lie. There's only one project scope statement. Because there's only one project and you can only have one scope. You cannot have multiple scopes. So that original scope statement, it contains a lot of sections, constraints, risks, acceptance criteria, and some other things. So those things are supposed to feed into the scope, just as the requirements you collected also feeds into the scope. We get that. Mr. Jalil, please. Okay. All right, that's that. WBS, we have said so much about it already. So this is an example of your WBS. This one is broken down into these 5. Then this 1.0 is broken down into these 3. 2.0 is broken down, 3.0 is broken down. So this is a work breakdown structure. Code of accounts, this is like the numbering system. And look, if you look at here now, you see, this is 1.0, this is 1.1. If you break down 1.1, it will become 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3. If you break down 1.1.1, it will become 1.1.1.1, 1.1.1.2, 1.1.3. So that's how you number. But then, if you say 1.1.1.2, what does it mean? We don't know. Because we cannot write down all the details inside this tiny box. So that is why we now have another document called the dictionary. So that we now say, okay, 1.1.1.2 means erecting the wall beside wall beside water tank. 1.1.1.2 means the water tank contain the water tank iron the water tank stand. 1.1.1.3 means flooring backyard, something like that. So it's that dictionary that we map those codes back to the description, because you cannot write detailed description inside these tiny boxes. So these are some of those things you can have inside your dictionary. So the composition is just that general breaking things down, breaking down, and cascading, breaking down, cascading. So this is an example of what I was telling you. 1.0 to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.1 into 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3, 1.1.4. Like that. So control accounts, work packages. See this one, they are explained in the video. We wouldn't spend too much time. Control account, when we get to cost management, we'll talk about it. Planning package. When we discuss control accounts, you know about planning package. You see, one thing you need to understand, and it's very important that you understand it, is that you see this thing you're looking at here. Hello, are you there? This thing you're looking at, your WBS in predictive project management too, is like the beginning of the project. It is from your WBS. It's like the planning base of the project. It's like the planning base of the project. When you do your WBS, it's from there you do schedule management. It's from there you do resource management. It's from there you do even procurement management to some extent. It's from there you do many other things. Because these work packages you are looking at, when we get to schedule management, we'll explain better. These work packages you are looking at, by the time you have defined what your work packages are, you now do another round of the composition of your work packages into what is called activities. Those activities are now like your to-dos. It is those to-dos. Hello, are you listening? Mr. Lako, confirm you are following. It is those to-dos. Yes, it is those to-dos. Please note this point. By the time you when you are doing scope management, you do your work, your WBS. That ends at that point. But by the time you start your schedule management, you want to manage schedule on the project. Don't forget, schedule is like timetable. By the time you get to schedule management, these are work packages, you go and break it down again into to do. I want to carry this, move this, do this, to-dos. So those, they are called activities. It is now those activities that you now give time, dates, you assign resources, you assign costs. So by the time you give it time, those are the things you now aggregate back to the top to know the duration of the project. By the time you assign resources, those are the things you now aggregate back to the top to have an idea of the total resource need of the project. By the time you aggregate back to the top, by the time you assign time, you have an idea of the schedule of the project. By the time you aggregate cost, you have an idea of the budget of the project. Everything coming out of your WBS or having the origin as your WBS. So all this work package is the lowest level. Upper levels, you have control accounts, you have planning accounts. And then here's your scope baseline. Your scope baseline is the approved version, the baseline version of your scope statements, your WBS, and your WBS dictionary. It can't change except it goes through normal project change control procedures. So by default, normal project scope statements, WBS dictionary. Those are the core things that you have in your scope baseline, because planning package, work package, they are part of your WBS. So there's no need to list it out separately. Okay, oh yeah, Mr. Lako, yeah, read this to us. I will just stop you at anyone and ask you to justify. Yeah, read to us, please. Quickly, Oga, it's almost 5.
Okay, guidelines create a WBS review. I have to review scope management plan, project
Yeah.
scope statements, the requirements, documentations. Then EEFs and OPs, external environmental
Explain,
factors.
Oga, calm down. EEFs, OPAs, justify. Why do we need them when
Explain what?
EEFs, OPAs, why do we need them when we want to create a WBS? Justify. You have 1 minute. Your time starts.
Because okay. Yeah, because they affect the the work to be done. How in terms of the activity to be done. Yeah, if for example we want to develop a document and we already have a go by from the OPAs. So there's no point that we have to start from the scratch. So we just adopt that, maybe
You don't
and use it to implement.
I said, don't say
I
adopt.
didn't
You
get
say
that.
you leverage on. Don't say adopt.
Yes, okay, yeah, leverage on that and use it to do your work. So that will give you faster time. So no need to create another activity for that because you have something to leverage on. So likewise for EFs too. In a way, okay, there may be some activity that will be required to actually counter some external unfavorable influences, environmental influences into the project. So we have to factor in that too, so that we can prepare for any eventuality that may arise from such environmental effects.
Example of EF that has an influence when you are creating a WBS.
No, not really. I'm just trying to. I don't want to use the previous example that I'm looking within myself to see.
I'm still not giving me full meaning of EF.
I mentioned it now. I think external environmental factors. I mean, that first is external.
Right.
I'm not that sure again. Huh?
Enterprise.
Enterprise. Okay, enterprise environmental factors.
Because of time, let me give you a quick example. If you are decomposing, there are certain times in which there are industry standards for how you can decompose. There are certain standards where you are decomposing. It could be that, okay, there's a standard to say, okay, you cannot do half of a particular thing. It has to be a whole. I'm just giving an example. There might be an industry to say, okay, when you are working on this thing, this thing, when you are doing it, you cannot spread it across 2 weeks. Once you start it, you have to finish it immediately. So those are industry standards that can affect how you decompose. There are some industries that some things are entirely arbitrary at the discretion of the project manager. But there are some industries that some particular things have some kind of industry standards that you can't just do it anyhow. Right? Mr. Lako, are you there?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, very well. I just remember, just to buttress your point, there are some areas, okay, maybe if we are working on some area, I need to take out some safety critical equipment. So they will tell you this thing cannot be down more than 3 hours. So if you want to plan your work around that time, so you have to consider that.
Okay, yes. Okay, those safety equipment, right? Cannot be down more than 3 hours, okay?
Critical safety equipment, yes. Maybe anything that will trigger alarm in case of fire, in case of all those fire water service system, for example.
Okay.
Yes. So if you want to disable them, cannot disable them more than 3 hours.
Exactly. All right. So all what we have been talking about is predictive. By the time you get to the agile one, down, it's a difference. It's still at the same things at the core, but it's just that the way the way it's being displayed might be the bit, it's being displayed might be a bit different. Okay. So we have your WBS, which is a broken down whatever. This one, you have your backlog, which is a prioritized list of user stories, of to-dos in quotes. You know, so you have what they call product backlog and what you call iteration backlog. The normal backlog we have been talking about now is largely just understand backlog, yes. But in this case now, just like when you say scope, you have project scope, product scope. In this case now, product backlog are like those to-dos, primarily about the features of the project or things around related to the project. But the iteration backlog includes items from the product backlog that can conceivably be completed within a time period based on the team's capacity. Iteration backlog, product backlog is the full backlog of the project. Iteration backlog is the backlog for that sprint. For that sprint. For that sprint. For that sprint. Okay? User stories. What are user stories? Each time we keep talking about, let me try to see if I can get a version of user story. Okay. Coming. Oh, beautiful. I found one. Please check WhatsApp, please. Okay. So, Mr. Jalil, can you kindly read what I just posted to WhatsApp? Is Mr. Jalil with us?
Yes. As an account manager, I want a sales report of my account to be sent to my inbox daily so that I can monitor the sales progress of my customer portfolio. Acceptance criteria. The report is sent daily to my inbox. The report contains the following sales details. The report is in CSV format.
Hi, Mr. Jalil. Imagine the amount of other leaders that will be in the world if requirements can be stated like this. You can look at the amount of other leaders that will be in the world. It's clear, crystal clear. You know what he wants. You know who wants it. You know what he wants to use it for. And you know the other criteria. Yeah, that's what they call a user story. That's what they use the word story. It's like you are telling a story. You are giving us complete package about that requirement. It's different from just saying, give me sales reports. You just say list of to-dos, sales reports. You understand? List of to-dos, sales reports. And then the people working on it can do anything and call it a sales report. But the lay is clear. Sales, the report. Who wants it? The person who wants it also documented as part of the user, as part of the information. So you can see why they say it helps teams focus on the value provided to the user, not just random things by moonlight. Mr. Jelly, are you with me?
Very well, sir.
So it also suggests who will benefit from the work. It suggests how the person will benefit from the work. And it is driven by description instead of technical specification. It's not super too deep in technical. It's driven by description. Describing words. So that's why the word story, that's why they use the word user story. So you have your requirements, that are in the case of Agile, you populate your backlog with things like this, well stated, clearly written out. So that ends that. Now, any quick question on scope management? None. So let's jump right into schedule management. Schedule management. You have to watch video because schedule management is very, very key, very important, and it will take a lot of time. Scope management, schedule management, cost management, those three will take a lot of time, a lot of time, a lot of time, a lot of time. And we don't have that kind of time in class. So that's why the videos are there. But we'll still discuss them in class. And they are very interesting. But there are many other principles you pick that are of personal value, not just, what's the word? Not just exam value. So let's plan and manage our scope.
La cram la po.
Not exactly, not just la cram la po. Schedule management is, oh my God, plenty gone. Schedule management, plenty. Let me see. How many slides do we even have for schedule management alone? Schedule management has about 60 slides, about 70 slides. No, about 60 slides. Schedule management. Because it plenty.
In the next 30 minutes.
And we won't finish it. We won't finish it. We might finish it if agree that you watch videos. Because we can't, those things are too voluminous. We can't discuss them in class. Because it has calculation. Schedule management, you get calculation, forward pass, backward pass. We can't even discuss those ones in class. Luckily, you are engineers, so calculation is not your problem. Forward pass, backward pass. You know schedule now? Schedule, how to craft a schedule. Network diagrams. You know, those things will take a long time to explain. That's videos have been done on those things. There's no point wasting time again in class to be explaining them. So when you say schedule, part of the critical constraints, there are 3 critical constraints of a project. You have managing costs, managing schedule, managing scope. Those 3. And 3 critical constraints on a project. In fact, in addition to the rest, you know, they can have a way of either making your project work or not making your project work. So schedule, and the interesting thing about schedule is that you cannot talk of schedule without talking of resource. So they are so interdependent. Because you cannot say this activity will take 3 days, except you say it will take 3 days at this amount of resource assignments. Hardly does schedule work independent of resource. Well, not say hardly. Let me say in most cases, schedule, or let me say not in all cases can schedule be talked about independent of, what do you call it? Not in all cases can schedule be talked about independent of resource.
I think before a schedule can be baselined, it has to be resource loaded.
It has to be what?
When we're talking about level, resource loaded.
Exactly. Of course. Of course. Of course. Because if you say you take 5 days, it will take 5 days at this level of resource assignments. Because if that level of resource assignment changes, that 5 days too is likely to change. It's likely to change. So it includes the start and finish of activities. Remember, where do you get activities from? Mr. Lako, remind us, where do you get your activities from?
WBS.
From Libya. Libya, bro.
WBS.
Okay. I don't know. You have not answered my question. Where do you get your descriptions from? Explain. What do you mean by WBS in this case?
You said, where do we get our activities from?
Where do you get activities from?
Our activities are gotten from WBS.
Oh, it's still too. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you understand what I'm just saying. Say it in a way that I'm sure you understand what you're saying. Activities are gotten from the composition of work packages in the WBS. Better.
Okay. I understand. What brings about work packages?
The composition, Nani. Decompose until you get to the lowest level. Work packages are the lowest level of WBS.
No, I'm just, if we decompose work packages to arrive at WBS, what do we decompose to arrive at work packages?
The scope of the project now.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
If it's the scope of the project itself that you are decomposing, then you get your WBS. WBS itself, the lowest level are your work packages. That's when you're doing scope management. By the time you are getting to schedule management, yes, those lowest level, you go back there and decompose them further into. Okay, there's one thing I did not mention. Your WBS, you are decomposing deliverables. Your schedule are activities, to-dos. So you go to your lowest level of your deliverable and say, okay, what are the actions that are needed to deliver this micro deliverable? Okay, carry this, buy this, look for this, recruit this. Those are now activities. You now harvest all those activities into whatever software you want to use or whatever scheduling system you want to use. Okay. So this uses specific dates and in a certain sequence, sets dates for project milestones, coordinates activities to ensure on-time project completion, tracks schedule performance, and provides visibility of project status to upper management and project stakeholders. Okay. Of course, just like every other thing, just like the whole idea of OPAs, you know, when you want to say how long will this thing take, benchmarks, historical data are of very, very great use. How long does it take to cast this thing? Well, the last one we did was 2 weeks. Okay, no problem. Maybe we can also work with 2 weeks on this one too. Okay, so Mr. Abdelil, schedule management plan, what does it do? Mr. Abdelil, quickly. Mr. Abdul Jalil, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Schedule management plan, tell us, what's that document for?
It tells us about the schedule, how it's going to be managed. The schedule, which is gotten from the activities to be carried out on the project.
You have forgotten my principle. Anytime you hear something management plan, it is how will you carry out everything about that something throughout the lifetime of the project. The okay, what house, the what's at the house, the what's at the house, how will it be created, how will it be measured, how will it be validated, how will it be controlled, how will it be monitored, how will it be developed, how will it be, what factors, what metrics, what guidelines, what principles would you follow, what all of those things about it. So in terms of schedule, okay, what unit of time are you using? How do you break things down? How do you do this? How do you do this? So yeah, Mr. Abdeli, I read these 3 points to us, please. Oh yeah.
Describes schedule management plan, describes how activities will be defined and progressively elaborated. Identifies the scheduling method and scheduling tool to be used. Determines the format of the schedule. Establishes criteria for developing and controlling the project schedule.
Okay, thank you. So In agile environments, consider developing the project roadmap, schedule individual activities iteratively, choose an iterative approach. There's iterative scheduling with backlog. There's on-demand scheduling. What do we mean by this? Iterative scheduling with backlog is that delivers business value early and incrementally, allows changes throughout during the entire project, does not work well with projects featuring complex dependency relationships. What does this mean entirely? What this means is that iterative scheduling with backlog is that your backlog is being done. What's the word? Your backlog, you are carrying out, you are implementing the content of your backlog in iterations. Let's say sprints in this case. So the whole idea, and don't forget, the content of your backlog are prioritized. So you are going to work on what is of highest priority at every point in time. Now, the whole idea of the priority is that you want to deliver business value early. You want to at least let them have something, a mini version of the working of the application very early. Then allows changes during entire projects. Of course, because you are not bound by anything. If something changes, you simply need to go and rejig the content of your backlog. Does not work well with projects featuring complex dependency relationships. Remember that at every point in time, you want to work with what is most highest priority. Now, what if something of highest priority has a tight dependency with something else that does not have very high priority? What it means is that by the time you start using dependency will distort your priority listing. As well, I'm saying complex dependencies will distort your priority listing. It will distort it one way or the other. So iterative scheduling with a backlog process. Use progressive elaboration to schedule activities, of course. Use a specific time window, like a sprint, like a 2-week sprint, 3-week sprint. Define requirements in user stories. I think we know this already. Prioritize your stories. We know this already. Content of your backlog are prioritized. Select based on priority and time box. Of course, because they are prioritized, the uppermost ones are the most of highest priority. And time box here in this case, of course, referring to the ones you select to do in the sprint at that point in time. Add remaining stories to the backlog, of course. Construct late based on their priority. The ones you put in your backlog, by the time you finish that current sprint, you move to the next sprint. Of course, you want to pick more items. And the second form is called on-demand scheduling. This one does not use traditional schedules. Team members pull work from the queue when available. For example, you have a particular, let's say you have a particular task or something. There is no specific schedule for timetable for when it is used. Whenever that person is available, there are times in which, okay, you have a particular resource. When it's available, it just says, I'm available. Then they just give you whatever task is free or is to be done at that time. So this one is not like it is scheduled. It's not like it is part of a timetable that, okay, on Wednesday, this particular consultant is coming. No. Consultant can just call on Saturday morning and say, okay, what's available? What can I work on? And then, okay, you're available? Okay, no problem. Let me get back to you in 5 minutes time. I'll tell you what you can work on. And then they just pull some work for him to work on. So that's called on-demand scheduling. On-demand scheduling. Of course, like others too, these two does not work well with projects comprised of complex dependency relationships. Okay. Mr. Lacok, can you read this to us, please? Quickly.
Okay. Guidelines to develop a schedule management plan. Review the following. Project management plan. As for the purpose for information to develop the schedule. Project charter for a summary, high-level milestone schedule. Then enterprise environmental factors. Then
assets.
Let me be UPSF. Huh? OPS. Then use tools and techniques such as expert judgment and historical information to develop the schedule management plan. Then use meetings to develop the schedule management plan and document the schedule management plan for the projects.
They're all simple. I wanted to interrupt you at some point to ask questions. They're all simple, so I didn't interrupt you. So project activity is just any work to be done. That's all. Any work to be done. Distinct scheduled portion of work performed during a project. The work activity, an activity is a component of a decomposed work package. You have mentioned this like a million times. Activities are not the same as work packages or tasks. That's an important one. A task refers to project management software. A task refers to project management software. What do you mean by this? A task refers to project management software. A task refers to project management software. Okay, a work package is the lowest level of the BBS. We are clear on that. Now, what they are saying here is that a task, I think, is, I don't have it clear. I don't know. I've been, like, I'm seeing this line for the first time.
It's a component of the decomposed package.
A task refers to project. This word task, if you use a project management software like Primavera or Microsoft Projects, I think task is like a special thing that has its own meaning. And activities do not necessarily equate to a task when you're using the software. But in terms of English language meaning, you understand? English language meaning. So Ele is saying it's not equal to task in the context of how project management software are being built, what they call a task in project management software. But in English language context that we have been using all the while, you know, an activity is like a to-do, what needs to be done. You know, so that's that. Feature. A feature is a set of related requirements that allow the user to satisfy a business need. For example, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different requirements can describe a feature. What's an epic? Epic is a large collection of user stories that you can now get done over multiple sprints. That's what an epic is. Features and epics. Who will read this one? Mr. Lako, please read this one to us.
Usually described as a short phrase. These term groups related functionality together. These term groups related functionality together to deliver business value.
You understand that?
It includes activities and efforts such as features and epics. Epics is a large collection of user stories, right?
I have 1,000 user stories in my backlog.
Then features are what? What's the definition of features? 74
of them are about security. So those ones, I can tag them security epic with 74 user stories about security. I can now say, okay, those 74 user stories are to deliver the security feature. So read point number 1 again.
Okay. Usually described as a short phrase. Okay. Features and epics. These term groups related functionality together to deliver business value. Okay, that's clear. Using that from the example that I gave. Then it includes activities and efforts such as documentation, bug fixes, testing, and quality or defect repairs. It delivers the capability that can be estimated, tracked, and managed as it is set. Okay, because it's a group.
It's a group of exactly.
Related user stories, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they can be tracked and managed together.
Exactly.
Okay, epics are responsible for producing a major deliverable, which may include various agile features. For example, for example, yeah.
Okay. So working with features, scheduling aligned to features ensures associated work is coordinated, just like managing as a group. Estimating features offers visibility to when blocks.
Okay, please, I think in one of the slides, There's a definition given to feature, right? If we just scroll up a bit, sir.
Here it is.
Before Epic. Yes. The set of related requirements that allows the user to... Okay. Epic.
Estimating features offers visibility to when blocks of functionalities can be released to the business and end users. Progress can be measured by drawing a ratio of accepted to remaining features. Milestone. I usually regard a milestone as like a map in time, in a future point in time. You understand? To say, okay, at this point, though, we want to be here, or we want to have achieved something. So a significant point of events in a project, program, or portfolio. So a milestone list simply identifies all the project milestones. Look at this one. Milestone 1 will have reached this point. Milestone 3 will have reached this point. Milestone 5 will have reached this point. So that's what it means. This statement of milestones have 0 duration. It's a technical word. I don't know if I should explain it, but the explanation just means that on your schedule, you understand? You know, an activity will say, okay, construct Western Wall, for example. You can say, okay, construct Western Wall is an activity. How long will it take? 7 days. What do we need? We need 4 workers. We need 10 bags of cement. We need blah, 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 blah. That's an activity. But in the case of a milestone, it's not, you can't say, I need 10 days to get this milestone. No. A milestone is just a point in the future. It's not something that has a duration. So that's why they call it a 0 duration, because it represents an achievement. It's not an activity that takes you to the achievement. This is an example of a milestone chart. So milestone is the way of presenting the schedule, especially to top management, because top management will not need your detailed timetable, network diagram. In fact, in some cases, your Gantt chart might become too technical to show top management. You just show top management a small chart with maybe 3, 4, 5, 7 points on the chart. Okay, milestone 1, by milestone 1, which is called March 2024, we should have achieved clinical percent of market share. By milestone 5, which is August 2027, we'll have achieved over the top. So the detail, activity, top management does not need it. So you present the version of schedule that is appropriate to the audience. Mr. Abdul, please read this to us quickly, please. Let's see if we can cover some little ground before we call it a day. Is Mr. Abdul with us?
Estimating project activities. Review schedule management plan. Review scope baseline from the WBS, deliverables, assumptions, and EEFs, and constraints, EEFs, OPAs. Analyze and decompose each work package of the WBA into activities that will be required to produce the deliverable. Consult subject matter experts about unfamiliar material.
Why?
Evaluate all. Sir?
Why?
Consult SMEs because they are experts, subject matter experts, for things that are not clear.
Why? What do you mean by things that are not clear? Give me an example.
Say, for example, we're talking about network diagram, and maybe there's something I know about a leading and lagging activity.
You are going to technical. Are you going to the NASA presentation?
Apologies, sir. I like an example that I know I'm also a technical person. Sorry.
Oh, yes, because I asked you a very simple question. You are giving me PhD level NASA presentation.
You are the subject matter expert.
All I'm asking you to tell me is estimating project activity.
You know how simple No, we don't know. We beat around the bush now.
You, as the project manager that you want to estimate, you are not a subject matter expert for everything. You cannot sit down in your office and be estimating how long it will take to weld. Are you a welder? You cannot sit down in your office and how long it will take for carpenters to finish their work. Are you a carpenter?
Correct.
Maybe based on experience, you might have an idea, but don't understand that you should consult with the subject matter experts when you want to estimate. Don't forget that the whole idea is estimating project activities. Don't assume that because you're a project manager, you have all the knowledge to be able to estimate the activity duration for every possible activity. Now, lie, it's not possible. You are not God. You cannot have knowledge. Okay?
So evaluate all constraints and assumptions for their possible impact on activity definition. After decomposing each work package into activities, evaluate the activity lists.
At least at this point, we should end the class.
Thank
you. Now want to look at the core meats of scheduling. The core meats. By the time you talk of activity dependence, finish to start. You know, okay.
Start to finish.
No, that one is relationship. Lead and lag. That's where you were taking us to before we go. Okay.
I think we do practical Primavera class here.
Practical waiting.
Primavera training.
That was another thing entirely. That's another thing entirely. That's another thing entirely. That's interesting. Let me see. Okay, please, Mr. Nako, Mr. Abdul-Jalil.
Sir.
If you don't watch video, tell me now, so I can tell them to refund your money.
I will watch video.
Okay, better. No, we need the watch. We want the money.
Tell me now that you not watch, so that we can remove you from the class. Say yes.
Ele tá te correndo não ninguém, a ma blast vai que vai logo exam musu.
Okay.
Você backlog lá tem money, you sad stories.
So please, I'm begging. Even there, but any that thing. Cost, schedule, scope. Don't joke with it. Don't joke with it. Cost, schedule, scope. Don't joke with it. Because only form with basis, foundation. The moment we are done with cost, because by the time you have gotten to costs, you'll have seen almost all the possible terminologies. You'll have seen so many of the terminologies. So all the rest will just be like, for example, now look at how you are coming across user story. Well, user story. Now we have seen it. I don't need to overflog it. You come across retrospective. No man here now. Seen it. That's how the rest will look. You see us will be doing like 200 slides per day. Because look at today now. Listen, where are we now? We have barely moved. We have not even gotten to half of lesson 2. Because you cannot rush these parts. This is project management itself. This is core practical project management or theoretical practical of project management. You understand? So, thank you very much. Have a nice day. See you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.